You wake up. You walk to the bathroom. You look in the mirror. You see your skin. You have seen it 10,000 times. Maybe it is dark. Maybe it is pale. Maybe it sits somewhere between. You think you know what it means. You think it tells a simple story about where your family came from, about geography, about sun. But here is what you do not know. For 99.9% of human history, almost everyone on Earth looked basically the same. This changed everything. And the speed of that change, the violence of it, the reason it happened at all, is one of the most misunderstood stories in science. Let me show you what is really hiding in your skin. Everyone knows that skin color comes from melanin. You learned this in school. Darker skin means more melanin. Paler skin means less. Melanin protects you from the sun. People near the equator have more of it. People far from the equator have less. Simple. Obvious. Case closed. But something does not add up. If this story is so simple, why did it take until the year 2000 for scientists to figure out when it happened? Why did they need to sequence ancient DNA from 40,000-year-old bones? Why did they find evidence that contradicts everything we assumed about the timeline? The truth is that melanin and sunlight are only the beginning of the story. They are not the plot. They are the setting. And the real plot involves a molecule so powerful that it controls your bones, your immune system, your mood, and maybe even your survival as a species. This molecule is vitamin D. But not the vitamin D you buy in a bottle. This is something older. Something your body manufactures from sunlight hitting your skin. And the amount of melanin you carry determines exactly how much you make. Here is where the story turns strange. In 2000, anthropologist Nina Jablonski at Penn State University published a study in the Journal of Human Evolution that changed everything. She did not look at living people. She looked at the physics of ultraviolet radiation and the biology of human skin. And she asked a question no one had properly answered. When did different skin colors actually evolve? Her team calculated the relationship between UV intensity at different latitudes and the melanin content needed to protect folate, a B vitamin critical for DNA synthesis and fetal development. Too much UV destroys folate. Too little UV prevents vitamin D synthesis. Your skin sits at the exact intersection of these two dangers. Jablonski found that the optimal melanin levels for each latitude could be mapped mathematically. Then she compared this map to the fossil record. The result was shocking. Humans have been a single species for roughly 300,000 years. For most of that time, we all lived in Africa. We all had dark skin. The variation we see today, the entire spectrum from deepest brown to palest pink, evolved in the last 50 to 60,000 years. That is less than 1/5 of 1% of our history. Think about that. The color of your skin, the feature people use to sort humanity into categories, is newer than cave paintings. Newer than the extinction of Neanderthals. Newer than the first boats that crossed open water. Your skin color is a photograph taken at the very end of a very long story. But this was only half the story. In 2007, Dr. Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, did something extraordinary. He extracted DNA from a 40,000-year-old Neanderthal bone. Then he looked for the specific genes controlling skin pigmentation. He found something that made no sense. The Neanderthals who lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years already carried some of the same pale skin mutations that modern Europeans have today. But modern humans who left Africa 50,000 years ago did not have these mutations when they arrived in Europe. This means pale skin in Europe evolved twice, independently, through different genetic pathways. Convergent evolution on a massive scale. The strangest part was still hidden. Pääbo's team kept digging. In 2014, they sequenced the genome of a 7,000-year-old European hunter-gatherer found in Spain. His skin was dark. His eyes were blue. This combination, which seems impossible to modern eyes, was normal in Europe for thousands of years after the ice ages ended. Pale skin in Europe did not arrive with the first humans who entered the continent. It arrived much later. It spread rapidly. And the reason for that spread had nothing to do with the sun alone. In 2015, researchers at University College London published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that pointed to a completely different culprit. They analyzed ancient DNA from across Europe and found that the major pale skin mutations swept through the population only within the last 8,000 years. 8,000 years. That is after agriculture began. After humans started eating grains. after we locked ourselves into diets that contained almost no vitamin D. The evolutionary pressure was not just weaker sunlight. It was weaker sunlight combined with weaker food. The double deprivation. The ancient survival switch had been flipped, and pale skin spread because it was the only way to squeeze enough vitamin D from an impoverished life. But the most surprising discovery came later. In 2018, a team led by Dr. Sarah Tishkoff at the University of Pennsylvania published a paper in the journal Science that shattered another assumption. They studied African populations, the most genetically diverse humans on Earth, and found that the genes for skin color in Africa are not what anyone predicted. East African pastoralists, who live under intense equatorial sun, carry some of the same pale skin variants found in Europe. West African forest dwellers carry unique dark skin mutations not seen elsewhere. The genetic architecture of skin color is not a simple gradient from dark to light. It is a mosaic, a patchwork of solutions to local conditions that scientists are still mapping. You thought latitude was the reason. You thought the map was simple: dark at the equator, pale at the poles. But the real reason was local adaptation to specific UV environments, specific diets, specific migratory histories, specific combinations of pressures that never repeated exactly. Your skin color is not a dial turned by latitude. It is a fingerprint left by thousands of unique accidents. Almost nobody talks about this part. The categories we use, the colors we name, the groups we imagine as stable and ancient, are all younger than agriculture, younger than writing, younger than the domestication of the horse. You thought your skin color was a statement about deep ancestry. You thought it separated populations that diverged long ago. But the real reason is that humans are a species that moves. We walked out of Africa in multiple waves. We adapted in real time. We changed our color like a chameleon changes its shade, not in months but in generations, because the pressure was that intense, because the trade-off was that brutal. This means something unsettling. The differences we magnify, the boundaries we police, the identities we treat as ancient and fixed, are actually the most recent features we have. They are surface adaptations to moving sun and changing food. They are not foundations. They are weathering. This changes how you see yourself. And it changes how you see everyone else. That person with different skin, who you might think belongs to a separate branch of humanity, is actually your cousin in the most literal sense. Your lineage is separated for a blink of geological time. Your genes are almost entirely identical. The few that differ are the ones that responded to sunlight. The sun did this. Not deep history. Not essential difference. The angle of photons hitting the Earth at different latitudes, filtered through the chemistry of melanin, shaped what you see in the mirror. What does this mean for the future? We are the first humans who can choose where we live regardless of our skin. We move between latitudes in hours, not generations. We supplement vitamins. We fortify foods. The evolutionary pressure that carved us into different colors has been switched off. This is unprecedented. For 300,000 years, your skin was a survival tool calibrated to a specific place. Now it is a memory, a fossil of conditions that no longer apply. The dark skin that protected your ancestors from equatorial sun now lives in Seattle and London and Toronto, where the winter sun is too weak to trigger vitamin D synthesis for months. The pale skin that helped manufacture vitamin D in northern latitudes now lives in Australia and South Africa and Brazil, where the UV burns through melanin defenses in minutes. The evolutionary mismatch is everywhere. Your body does not know the pressure has stopped. It keeps producing the melanin levels that suited your ancestors. It keeps running the ancient program. And you live with the consequences, the deficiencies, the burns, the statistical risks, the confusion about who you are supposed to be. This means the future of human color is unwritten. In 10,000 years, if we still exist, we may all converge again. Or we may diverge further, into colors that have never existed, shaped by new environments we cannot yet imagine. Space stations, underground cities, worlds with different stars. Or we may simply stop caring, because the science has made the truth unavoidable. You wake up. You walk to the bathroom. You look in the mirror. You see your skin. But now you see something else. You see the last 50,000 years. You see the walkout of Africa. You see the Ice Age refugees huddled in European caves, their children dying without enough vitamin D, until a mutation spread that let them survive on less. You see the grain farmers of the Fertile Crescent, their diets stripped of the fish and meat that once supplemented their sun, their skin paling under the pressure of deficiency. You see the endless African experiments with pigmentation, the mosaic of solutions, the genetic creativity of a continent that never stopped adapting. You see that your color was never a choice, never a moral quality, never a deep identity. It was a weather report from a specific place and time. And the place and time are gone. Maybe the problem was never difference. Maybe it was our refusal to understand how recent, how mechanical, how utterly environmental that difference always was. Maybe the mirror has been showing us a map all along, and we have been reading it as a destiny. You touch your face. The skin is warm. It is doing exactly what evolution programmed it to do, in a world that no longer needs the program. The sun rises. It does not care what color receives it. It only asks that something living stand in its light. You are still standing.